That's Mr. Steve Vai right there, everybody.
Mr. Joe Satriani right there.
All right. So we are here to answer all your questions. I don't think any question is off limits, but we only have...
So long to come out and play together.
Well, we were kind of busy making our, solo records. We both have, it's funny, we never talked about this, but we both have like these books, and we write all these things that we want to do in our musical lifetimes. And we just keep working through the book. And every time we thought like, well, we should see if we can get together, do something, we'd look at the book and go, oh, but I still got this and this and this and this. So I guess we got to the same page at some point.
Yes.
I'm very glad.
And it was kind of written. We did do a lot together through the years, but this particular incarnation, we saved the best. And it's interesting because I think I mentioned somebody sent me an article from an interview that we did in the 90s.
Yeah.
And, we get asked the question, when are you going to tour together? And really, we were in a sense with G3, but, and make a record. And the answer was, it's in the cards, we know it's going to happen, we're kind of busy with our solo careers. And then it even came up, maybe we'll call it the Sea of Emotion. It was amazing.
Here we are. Yeah.
Do either of you guys plan on attending the John Petrucci Guitar Universe?
No, what is that? It's...
What do you say? What or when?
Yeah, when, I guess.
I do not know.
No. I've been in Petrucci's universe.
Yes, yeah. You created it.
Before, many times on stage. And I gotta tell you, that's a frightening thing. When he's standing right here and you hear people soloing and then John solos and then you're next and you're thinking, oh great. What am I gonna do? So I'm not sure I need to attend it, but I've been there before. It's awesome experience. Right? You too?
I attended those John Petrucci encounters, but another one during lockdown. It seemed to be a pastime of a lot of guys to grow facial hair. So I just didn't shave, and that's when I discovered my beard is totally gray. I look like Santa Claus. So I wrote to John and he sent me this, because he has this whole line of beard care stuff. Special shampoo and all, because when you get into a culture like that, it's like a club. So I experienced John in a different way.
I think he's got a scent now. I don't know about that. I mean, I've stood next to him before, so I'm not sure. Yes?
I read the recent Guitar World magazine with both you guys on it, and I just want Steve to tell me how intimidating Joe Satriani was, because you came with a guitar with no strings, and was he an intimidating character in high school?
Well, Joe was a little older, so he was part of like a few grades ahead. So anybody older like that is pretty cool, but when you play guitar and you were as cool as Joe, you're uber cool. So when you're teaching it, so intimidation probably would set in if I was joining a band with another guitar player that was just much better than me or something like that. But with Joe, he was a teacher, and I was a student. He had all the secrets, so it wasn't an intimidation. Well, who was I going to be? I was nothing. I couldn't even string the fucking thing. So he was more a savior in a sense.
Yeah.
So what would you guys say was the biggest lesson you learned from working with Corey Long and the Boys from Buffy?
Well, I didn't really work with Corey. I got, sent a track and added something on it. And, when people send you stuff like that, you play whatever, sort of leaps off the fretboard, and then afterwards you go, oh, they're probably going to hate it. It's got nothing to do with, their scene. But I got a great reply, which was, "That's awesome, can we use it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I didn't get to see Corey until months later, or a year later, when he was one of the instructors at one of my G4 camps. Fabulous musician, great personality on stage and off, you know, so that's really great. But unfortunately, yeah, we didn't sit in the studio and like trade ideas for hours and hours. That was just the reality of lockdown.
Yeah. It was kind of the same with Polyphia. You know, during lockdown, you received things, and what I learned from working with them on their track is don't try to play fast or complicated.
Yes.
Yeah. I love your collaboration with Grace Potter, that Neil Young cover.
Yeah.
And I especially love like your guitar against a trumpet, which I never would have put those two instruments together. Have either of you ever thought of either incorporating any different instrumentation into your like your recordings or your live bands, or writing specifically for like, you know, this would sound good on a horn or something else?
Yeah.
Has that ever come up?
Firewall.
I have used quite a lot of different instruments on the albums, quite a lot. I mean, there's a lot of orchestra stuff that is small and big and to different degrees. And there is an issue with trying to get your electric guitar to fit in. It is a nasty instrument, really, when you come down to it, because the classical instruments played by well-trained classical players, it's a really beautiful thing. And you don't know how nasty a guitar is until you play next to a classically trained musician. I learned that actually in high school. We used to get tested by the State Board of Regents in New York twice a year. And I remember roaming the halls of this one high school where they were doing all the testing, and every kid was brilliant, and they were playing violin and classical trumpet and woodwinds, and I couldn't believe it. It sounded nothing like my band rehearsals when we were playing Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. It was just, you know, no comparison, you know. So I love the sound of those instruments, but it's a trick, you know. Steve has had quite a lot of practice with that because he's done the orchestra work. He might be able to shed some light on it.
Yeah, orchestration is a different kind of a perspective than building rock music, and even composing, let's say, for a nylon string guitar with an orchestra. There's a lot of taboo, and with an electric guitar, it is totally a different world because you have these organic instruments that get their sound from the wood or the brass, and just the way they resonate in acoustically. And then you got like this giant stomping through the garden, you know? Because an electric guitar creates totally different frequencies. So it really is a trial and error for some years, and then finding the blend. But in my rock bands, I've tried to, I've incorporated some different instruments. One of my favorite bands was Where the Wild Things Are. I had two violin players, and they were both fiercely talented. And I wrote some real virtuosic things for them. There's this solo that we built. I built with them for them. It's called Apples in Paradise. And if you really want to see some great duo violin, check it out on YouTube. It's great.
Yeah, I want to add one other thing that's been a real big change from, let's say, the 70s when we first started to hear rock bands with orchestras. Is in those days, it was the real orchestra with a real rock band. And so the tuning issues and the sonic issues that Steve was talking about, they were really apparent. Today, when we use orchestras, most of the time, they're software orchestras, and everything's been tuned. And so the orchestra world has been brought into the world of synthesizers and guitars, and so it sounds a bit tighter today, in terms of being able to fit in. But yeah, if it's a real orchestra like what Steve has done, that's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah, one of the things I discovered that was a little disheartening is how out of tune horn players and how much they crack. When very unreliable.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry if there's any more.
Yeah, back there.
What's your favorite performance, say, you guys have done on your tens of thousands? Is there one that specifically resonates as your favorite?
Tonight is going to be. Yes.
Yeah. You have some very interesting song names like Mystical Potato Head Groove, Zeus and Chains. So how do you come about that process of naming your songs?
Yeah, I'd say 99.9% come before I start approaching an instrument. I have an idea, a feeling, and I'm really writing from an inspirational point of view, not a technical point of view. So the title, maybe in a looser form, is already there right at the beginning. I was just thinking today about a song called Littleworth Lane that actually I wrote in the car months before I came here to this theater, but finished it upstairs in the dressing room because I had a piano. And I had a recording of that, and the piano was so out of tune. It was great though, because I'm not much of a piano player, so it was right at my level. But I recorded it, and that was the demo that I played for the band in the studio, and we just charted everything out from that performance. I was thinking about that. But once in a while, a title comes just a little bit afterwards, and that one, Mystical Potato Head Groove thing, I was writing that song. I got a call from my brother, and we're just sitting there talking about I don't know what, and I just started doodling, and I wrote that down, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh, that's really weird. And then my brother said, hey, are you there? Hello? I said, yes. So, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
You never know.
For me, the titling of a song can come in various ways. Sometimes it's the first thing. Sometimes it comes in the middle. And sometimes it comes when the song is done, at any point. And with Zeus and Chains, I had the riff. I liked the riff. It came from a bedside, before bed, just sitting and noodling. I keep an electric guitar, and it's not plugged in or anything. And when my wife's getting ready, I just noodle. And if something has some energy in it, I just throw on my iPhone. And I started, and I liked that riff, and it just kept leading me into the next part. And I even have on the tape, I hit that one big, beautiful 7-string chord, and you hear in the background my wife go, that's a good one. But I didn't have a title, and when I finished the song, I was listening back, and there's this middle section that goes, ba-di-dum, 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 dum, dum. And there's this very menacing tritone way on top of it. And then there's this guitar sound that just sounds like some weird, and I'm listening to it and I'm waiting for the name, and as soon as that came in, I just saw Zeus in Chains, because that's what it sounded like. Zeus, and just the drama and the heaviness. So it's fun, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. Back when you first decided to pursue music as a career, you made that decision, I was going to pursue this as a profession, not just a hobby. What does success look like for you back then? Like, how did you define it? Was it selling X number of records, playing in a particular stadium? And then how has that definition of success evolved over time to today?
Well,
good question.
That decision was made when my brain was about this big. I was 90% hormones and, sugar, whatever. Teeny brain, listen, I didn't have any details worked out. I just knew that all the things that were important to me as a 14-year-old, I felt were going to be achieved if I just kept playing guitar and I just focused entirely on music. I think every year growing up, the reality of the world starts to seep in. Your concept of the world you live in gets larger and larger. Like when you're a baby, it's the room, and as you're a toddler, it's the house, and as you get older and older, it's your neighborhood, the town, the state, and if you get to travel around, you start to see, wow, okay, planet Earth, this is where I am. And so everything's got to change. For me, though, the success has always been, can we keep going? Is there can we play another night? Just to be able to do like what we're doing on this tour is just an incredible gift. Just that all of you have given us, actually, just to be able to get up here with your best friend and play just like we did when we were kids. That's pretty amazing. So that is success. The rest of it, you can work out,
I think, like Joe, I don't believe there was ever a point where a decision was made. And I don't ever remember thinking, okay, should I do this or should I be a musician? It always was, it had an attraction. Music just had an attraction. And at that time, being a young teenager, the idea of success was just making enough income to, have the simple things you need. But in the back of my mind, I kept a very powerful picture, a visual. And it was a visual that I created from the time I discovered the energy of music and of rock music especially. And I just listened to my favorite rock music, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, even younger. And I created a picture in my mind of this guy playing the guitar, totally effortlessly, elegantly, beautifully, and lifting the audience up. And I just created that picture of what it would feel like to be on a stage. And you're allowed to do this when you're a kid. You can do whatever you want in your imagination. Maybe in the real world, I was thinking, well, I don't know anything about the future. And the idea of that kind of success, I didn't really entertain it in reality, but I was creating it because that's how you manifest things. You visualize and you feel it, and you become what you think about. So I'm still working on that picture, trying to refine it. And my idea of success has changed through the years. Of course, in the beginning, it was just something as simple as, I don't mind as long as I get by, and I didn't ever feel that was going to be a problem, because when I left high school, I actually thought I would be very happy as a music teacher in high school, because our music teacher had such a profound impact on our lives. I thought if I can do that for kids, that's enough. I guess, the universe had different plans, but success then became something palpable in financial ways. But as you gain that kind of success, it's great, it's nice, but it's what I discovered is it's not it. I believe that success in life is measured by the amount of peace you have within yourself. Because that's really at the foundation of the quality of your life. But we're sure happy we're here tonight.
What do you guys do for a hobby, like when you're not playing music or in the studio, like each of you? Like, what do you love to do besides music?
Paint.
Paint?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say that'd be my only hobby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't collect anything.
Okay.
Steve collects bees.
I collect bees.
Oh, okay.
It's a fun little hobby.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you guys making an album together right now?
Yes, we are.
What?
Yeah, we should be back there working on it right now.
When do you think that would be done, maybe?
He's working on Edward.
Yes, I know. We've got 3 songs that are about 99% finished. Well, one of them is finished. We rushed out that quick mix to announce this tour. And we've got maybe 3 or 4 that are in the construction phase. But as Steve said, we're busy. I'm working really hard for this Hagar tour, the Best of All Worlds, and he's got this monumental task of deciphering Robert Fripp's guitar parts for the Beat tour.
Yeah.
That's what you hear backstage if you roam around. You just hear Fripp and Van Halen back and forth. Yes. Yeah.
Have you been rehearsing belly dancing?
Belly dancer?
Yeah.
Boy, no, we haven't done that since I don't know, 2004 or something like that. Yeah, we did that. I think when Matt and Jeff and Galen were in the band, the instrumentation was good for that song. That's a funny song, though. I mean, that's got a go. Thank you. No. I just got too many songs. I don't know what to do. Yeah.
So I just want to tell you guys that I met you guys when I was a little boy, and both of you guys were absolute rock solid dudes, very kind, and incredibly cool. Took the time to talk to all of us, and you've always been, both of you have been a huge inspiration to me ever since growing up, ever since I was this kid's age right here.
Great.
And I just think you guys are amazing. And Steve, there's a quote that you said that I think about all the time when I was a kid and as now as a man. You said our ability, our measure of success is a reflection of our ability to focus, and the only thing that's stopping you is the way you're thinking. And I just always think about that all the time, and you guys are both huge inspirations. So I have several follow-up questions. One, you mentioned Zeppelin. I want to know, that's my favorite band next to you guys. I want to know your guys' favorite Zeppelin song. And then also, what's, kind of piggybacking off one of the other questions, what's next in your career? You guys have done so much. You guys are so kick-ass. I mean, you're the best guitar players ever, as far as I'm concerned. What's next in your career, and what continues to inspire you and be so magnificent, every year?
Well, I don't know about all that other stuff. That's just too complimentary to handle. But thank you. But Zeppelin, oh man, that is a hard choice right there. Jimmy Page is such a wizard on so many levels that I can pick apart the things that I love about his playing, his writing, his production, his attitude, fearlessness. And sometimes they don't all match up into one song. Like When the Levee Breaks is a beautiful work of art. It's also a bit of studio trickery and the blending of instruments and manipulating tape machines. Totally brilliant. And then Since I've Been Loving You, for just pure spirit, like, damn this guitar, I'm gonna play these harmonies no matter what. I mean, it's so loose. There's not even a bass guitar on that song. I mean, it's just so crazy how great they were.
Since I've Been Loving You.
Yeah, Since I've Been Loving You. Yeah, it's on pedal bass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and John Paul Jones, of course, equally wizard-like musician, But I think when I go back and I hear the first Zeppelin album and just the presence that he had and his ability to just try anything. I guess, I remember seeing him at Madison Square Garden. I was just blown away at how live and fresh he was, how he just hinted at the studio versions. And the whole band was just trying to do something new every night. And even if he couldn't do it, he would just try it for you. And so you forget about, if you missed a note or tuning or the tempo, whatever. You'd feel that spirit that he had. And that's, you're not going to find that in an instruction book. Those people come around, only once in a while. So, yeah, we could go through the whole catalog. I got something to say about every song.
Well, Zeppelin hit me right between the eyes, and the first thing I heard that really lit me up was Heartbreaker. Brandon, and then, I don't know why, but the song Black Dog, it's just, it holds a time period in it, Every time I hear it, I'm 15 years old, and I'm at a party with my friends. And it's funny, because if I hear it now, I almost go into like a paralysis. I'm just like, because that's one of the songs that I just, listened to and imagined. As far as things coming up, we have this tour, and then I have a Beat tour for the rest of the year. And next year we're going to be completing the record, and see how touring might follow something like that. I have a solo acoustic vocal record that is almost finished. I don't know when it's going to come out, and I have 4 hours of studio recorded orchestral music sitting on the shelf that needs a lot of TLC. The other part of your question was what keeps you going?
Yeah, what continues to inspire you guys, because you guys are so passionate and motivated every time.
I think for me it's the same as everybody. A good idea. That's what keeps you motivated. You become inspired for something and you just go, I must do this. That's it. That's really it.
Inspiration, yeah.
Joe, when you play with Sammy, am I going to hear any chicken foot?
Yeah, I think there's, right now there's 2 songs. It's a 30-song list, so a lot of songs. I'm not sure how many of those will be. You'll be there, great. You had a question?
I'll be there.
I know this is going to sound like a really weird question, especially at this point in time in your careers. Do you feel that you have mastered the guitar, or is there still something to learn?
No. Well, you take that one.
Well,
They're not what you achieve.
in the perspective of some looker-ons, people looking on, it may look like mastery, and in some respects it certainly is. I mean, we worked really hard, and mastery is a result of focus, attention, and love, But from the inside looking out, there's always that, the ego loves hearing that, but the little, the creative in the background says, no, you haven't even scratched the surface. Just to get this master stuff out of here. No, you can't do this yet. You're not a man, so there's always a ring in the ladder that, you're climbing.
Yeah, that's true. I would have to, if I was being totally honest with you, there were things that I learned when I was 15 and 16 that I'm not any better at. It's really sad, and there's specific little things technically, and I'm still wondering at this age, like, how come I didn't get any better at that one? So at some point you go, okay, I'm just not going to practice that. It's like, that's not my thing, So then you have a workaround for that thing, and then it gets you to move on. But it's an important thing I used to mention to my students, that don't get hung up on those things, those little sort of brick walls that show up, to remind you that you and your body probably going to have a hard time doing this, but you might be able to do this better than most people. So you sort of try to collect all those talents that you have that you can shine with. And so we don't think in terms of mastery. It doesn't feel like that. Good question. Yes?
So I was just wondering, with all the albums, fantastic, unbelievable albums you guys have come out with, starting from the very beginning of time to how your creative process, how that whole thing may have, I guess, evolved and changed over time. The way you write your music, the way you approach it, your goals. How has that maybe changed?
I don't think it's changed at all, really. I get a feeling about something, interaction, a memory of an interaction with a person, imagined or family member, friend, whatever. I see something in the news, something happens during the day, and I find myself at home with an instrument. And so I just start from there, and that's never really changed for me. But I'll tell you one thing that I learned very early, which was never to ignore it. Once our teacher in high school, Bill Westcott, taught us to interpret the sounds in our head into music that could be written down. That just opened up the floodgates, and I leave them open all the time. I'm so grateful that I get those ideas and I can turn them into music,
What was the question again?
it was just how maybe over time your creative process or writing process may have changed or evolved.
Well, if it's changed, it's only because I became more aware of options and technology that's aided in the creative process. But I just remember setting out and thinking, I'm going to create a catalog of music that's relatively undiluted by anything, you know, for better or for worse. You know, sometimes a lot of my production, I overproduce. I have a tendency to overproduce. I have a tendency. I like complexity sometimes. I mean, sometimes it took something as complex as the Hydra for me to finally write a simple song. It's true. That's a Joe quote. It's beautiful, but it's true. You know, because my mind just works a particular way. And whenever I would engage with others in a co-creative way, it always felt like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I want to do this, you know? So I reserve my solo music for my quirky, complex kind of way. But I love co-creating with others. Like with Joe, I'm just so enjoying it. It's so great. It's like a new lease. It's like a new lease on life in a way, because I have a partner that I can actually exchange ideas with. That, you know, we play in the same playground. You know, there's nobody that I've ever worked with like that, and you get asked all the time, hey, you want to do something together? Hey, you know, and I'm like, well, I'll do a song. You know, maybe I'll do a track, but to hunker down and go deep. You don't want to waste your time, and you want something fresh and new and interesting and really deep. So you need the right person. So I'm comfortable exiting my complex little solo world to engage, because it's of very high quality. When you guys hear this stuff, we can't wait for you to hear it.
We can't wait.
Yes.
Thank you.
For me, I think Crying has always been one of the most emotionally expressive pieces of guitar work I've ever heard. I was just wondering if there's any specific event or story in your life that inspired the emotion for you to write that song.
Oh, yeah, I was just grieving for my father's passing, and I wrote that on a keyboard as a personal expression, not thinking that I would share it with the world. And but it wound up sort of traveling around with the Extremist project, and eventually, which it took 3 attempts to make that record, and the third attempt was in Los Angeles at Ocean Way with one afternoon, and Bisnet Brothers were in the music room just specifically to put down the drums and the bass. I put down a MIDI keyboard performance, and Andy Johns asked me to play some guitar, guide them through, just play a melody. So it's a really funny story, because I had none of my amps set up in the room at that time, because that week was just drums and bass we were doing. And he said, do you have something you can plug into? And I said, well, I have this little Zoom headphone amp. I can just plug into it. So he just looked at the assistant and said, get Joe plugged in, and then he turned around and he just kept focusing on the drums and the bass. And then we did a take, and it was one take, and he turned around and he said, oh my God, you just did it. What did you do? How did I record it? You know, he was like totally shocked and literally in tears that he had witnessed the performance that he knew was my best, but he had paid no attention to the details of how it was recorded. And so that's it. That's what you hear on the album. And it was an interesting moment, because usually when you're in the studio playing, everyone's looking at you, you're looking at them, there's a lot of communication going on. But in that moment, though, you know the room there at Ocean Way, when people are out in the music room playing, and the engineers and the assistants, everyone's looking this way. And I was in the back of the room, and no one was looking at me. And it was I think it tricked me into just forgetting about the moment that I was making an album. And so I was able to give a performance, and then there was no way to redo it. There was no way to fix it. All of the delay and the reverb and the compression was already built into that little headphone box. And it just went straight to tape. So we had to then mix the song around this very weird guitar sound, you know, but I'm glad you like it.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Because I resonate with you. It's one of my favorite guitar performances in history. You said you just started playing. Did you have the melody and everything, or you just you had the melody?
Yes, yeah. Because we had tried it at Woodstock, and I never felt it, you know, with the band. It just didn't sound right, the approach. And when we moved the project to San Francisco, for maybe a day, we tried doing it in an overdub style where you just have a drum machine and some guide bits and you play on it. And I knew that wasn't working. So I'd really discounted the song until I was actually at Eddie's studio and we were going over the tapes, Andy and I, and he said, "Oh, that's a good one. Let's do that one." And I thought, okay, I better practice it, you know, get it together. But I had never really played it through with a band. I didn't know really what I was going to do. I hadn't thought, like, is there supposed to be a solo section? Or so it's just a performance, but there's no delineation between the verse, the chorus. It's just like if you went to see a jazz combo and the sax player, whatever, just played the melody and the solo and the melody, and that was the end. No pedals, you know, no switching of guitars, no clever fairy dust or anything like that.
Sort of like Machine Gun.
Yes, yeah. Just straightforward. But I mean, if I knew that's what I was supposed to be doing that day, I would be so nervous. Everyone would be staring at me and waiting for like the magic, and that's, of course, it never comes.
That song is a miracle.
It is. Yeah.
I've also got a quick one for Steve, if you guys don't mind. I've heard a story that for The Boy from Seattle, you were searching for the right tone on a bunch of different strats and came across a cheap Mexican strat. Is that true or anything similar to that?
Yeah, I had saved up because I always wanted a vintage Strat, and they were about $17,000 at the time. This was a long time ago. And I lived right up the street from Sunset Boulevard, where all of the, I think it's Hollywood and Sunset, where all the music stores are, Guitar Center, all the little custom shops, vintage shops. And I just called them and asked them to bring me all their best antique Strats, you know. So I had about 20, 25, and I was just waiting because I knew what I wanted to hear. You know, there's something about that tubey, chalky kind of sound that Strats can have, and I'm looking for the deepest and something I could play. And I just couldn't find it in any of the antique guitars, you know. But I found it in this $500 Japanese knockoff, and that's the one I used, and you can really hear it. And what a little funny story about that. And then one of my techs at that period, for some reason, changed the pickups, and he put these stacked humbuckers so it wouldn't hum, and thought he was doing me a favor. And I got so freaked out, we found them in the garbage. You know, I made him go out and the garbage, we put them back in.
Thank God.
It's funny how that works. All the way back there, yeah. For me, it's being left alone, to tell you the truth. It's just being just by myself, not thinking about anything else in the world, not being influenced by anybody else's opinions about anything. I enjoy that the most, that one moment, because the rest of our lives is so out in the open, it's crazy, you know. So it's a special thing when you're by yourself and you write something that comes from the inside.
Yeah. What do you do? Okay, so during that process of transforming metal into aerospace technology, you need to stop for a moment and look at what's at hand, and then use your creativity along with your academic information to move forward. Right? Would you agree? Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
This is for Steve. Who built the Hydra and what did it cost?
Well, it's insured for $10 million, but it didn't cost me anything. I guess the Hydra started out with my love for double neck guitars with Jimmy Page. So all through my career, I kind of fooled around with multi-necked guitars, and because Ibanez is the company I worked with, they're always so supportive. They're willing to build my crazy ideas, big hard guitar, you know, totally ridiculous. And it was the hard guitar was originally made as a prop for the Roth video, because I don't play it like this. You know, Michelangelo Badio can do that. Same with the hard. So, but I felt a little guilty, so I wrote a song called Fever Dream, where it uses all the necks like a crazy person, you know. But still, I wasn't satisfied. About 8 years ago, it was just an idea. It came as like a download. The whole thing, just in one download. And if I was to kind of speak it, it would sound like, you're going to create an instrument that will carry an entire piece of music, and you're going to play it, and I could see it, that I knew it would be possible if I put the screws to it, but that download also said it has to have a great melody, it has to be a song, a good song. You know, it can't sound like a gimmick for a funny instrument. You know, it needed to sound like an enjoyable piece of music, or at least the best that I could write. So I know it needed a melody, a good melody, and it was, okay, so then I started an email to Ibanez, and it was basically, I would like a guitar with a bass neck, a 7-string neck, 12-string, actually it was 10-string in the beginning. I have a prototype Hydra with 10 strings. Why 10? Because I thought I'd be different. Once I got the 10-string, I'm like, nah, this sucks, you know. And I wanted the harp strings, and there's a guitar synthesizer in it. I wanted sample and hold, and piezo's and sustainers, all this stuff. But I didn't know what it was going to look like. So I waited, and a couple of years later, the inspiration came in the form of a Mad Max movie. You know, there's this one scene where they're going through the desert. Going through the desert in every scene, but the guy's playing the guitar in the front of the, you know, and the flames are shooting out of it. And once I saw that, I said, oh, there it is, steampunk. So I got some examples of steampunk, and I put it in the email that I wrote 3 years before. Now I had, and I sent it, and as soon as Japan got it at Ibanez, those guys, they're young, they're enthusiastic, and they're very creative, and they just start sharpening their knives, you know? And they sent me at first some illustrations, which went through a period of changes, and then they came with a cardboard cutout of the Hydra, which was necessary to kind of move certain things, and then they came with a prototype, which I have. It's called the Hyena. It's ugly as sin. It's not finished. And that was valuable because things like, I knew I had to play it, and I had to make a piece of music that was, you know, and then so the harp strings had to move and the bass had to go because I was hitting it, you know. So then once they got the final marching orders, about a year later, the Hydra showed up. And when I opened the case, this is ridiculous, this is insane. It was beautiful to me, but it was terrifying also, you know. So I put it on a stand for about a year and a half and passed it 30 times a day in the studio. And it just so happened that the timing was perfect for what I was working on in Violet, and I carved out 6 weeks of undisturbed 14-hour days, and I just started. It was so much fun. It was like a Rubik's Cube, you know, to get it all to work. And
And Jared's here because he just told me we're all getting a Hydra. Yes, thank you, Steve. Doesn't come with a case. It's really hard to just hold on to that while you're watching the show. So no Hydra, huh? What?
All right, folks, I'm back, which means now's the time that we go into photos.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to throw you back over to